Picture a tempest of invisible fire raging at over 1,000,000 miles an hour through the absolute freezing dark of space. This is not a storm of water or ice, but a relentless, radiant exhalation forged in the unimaginable furnace of our local star, pushing outward to carve a massive sanctuary in the void. It is a breathing, expanding bubble of plasma that holds every terrestrial world, every gas giant, and every human memory safely within its colossal magnetic grasp. Surprisingly, the celestial maps we confidently drew of this cosmic shelter were entirely wrong for generations. For decades, astronomers believed our solar home sailed through the galaxy like a sleek, elegant comet, leaving a long, fading gossamer trail behind its forward motion. If we were to look closer at the whispers sent back by our furthest robotic sentinels, we would discover a fundamentally different architecture, a pressurized, rounded cocoon, actively twisting and fighting against the crushing weight of the ancient interstellar sea. Imagine reaching the absolute limit of this colossal shield, a staggering distance away where the familiar laws and warmth of our sun simply run out of strength. Here lies a profound cosmic paradox, a disorienting frontier where the definitive end of our known system is simultaneously a vibrant, chaotic gateway into the uncharted Milky Way. It is a boundary defined by suspended animation, where particles become nearly frozen in physical space, yet burn with an impossibly intense, invisible thermal energy. You are safe. As you rest in the quiet comfort of your bed, these immense distant forces are silently holding back the harsh, radioactive storms of the deep universe on your behalf. These wonders are yours to inherit as you sleep, a permanent lullaby of plasma and magnetic tension playing out across billions of miles of eternal night. This cosmic structure is a living, breathing masterpiece of fluid dynamics, constantly shifting its borders to ensure the unbroken peace of the inner worlds. Allow your own breathing to slow down, sinking heavily into the mattress as your chest matches the ancient, steady rhythm of this protective stellar expansion. Deep within the solar system, a silent, golden rush of charged particles flows outward from a blinding star. Deep within the solar system, a silent, golden rush of charged particles flows outward from a blinding star. This relentless exhalation, known as the solar wind, is not a breeze of air, but a tempest of plasma, forged in the unimaginable furnace of the sun's corona. It is the very breath of our local star, expanding outward to touch every world that orbits it. Born from nuclear fire, protons and electrons are violently stripped apart and hurled into the void by tangled, snapping magnetic fields. They surge outward in a continuous, omnidirectional wave, escaping the crushing gravity of their massive creator. The sheer volume of this outgassing is staggering, shedding millions of tons of solar matter into the surrounding darkness every single second. Despite this immense loss of mass, the sun has sustained this rhythmic, explosive breathing for billions of years without faltering. The solar wind bathes the inner planets in a blistering tide of radiation and raw kinetic energy. This radiant exhalation is the fundamental architect of the interplanetary environment, defining the true physical reach of our star long before gravity's hold finally fades. This invisible river travels at over 1,000,000 miles per hour past the rocky planets, carrying the sun's furious energy into the deeper cold. Unseen to the naked eye, this supersonic torrent of electrified gas washes over Mercury, Venus, Earth, and Mars with relentless, terrifying speed. It is a gale of phantom matter, moving so rapidly that it outpaces even the fastest human-made spacecraft with effortless grace. When this high-velocity plasma collides with planetary bodies, the interactions are violently spectacular, yet entirely silent. Worlds without strong magnetic fields like Mars suffer a slow, agonizing erosion as the supersonic wind strips away their fragile atmospheres, molecule by molecule. Earth, shielded by its robust magnetosphere, forces the invisible river to part and flow around it like rushing water striking a smooth river stone. The immense kinetic energy of this million-mile-per-hour current is the hidden engine driving the spectacular auroras at our poles. Even as it crosses the vast empty gulfs between the terrestrial worlds, the solar wind maintains its ferocious momentum. It refuses to slow down, plunging ever deeper into the twilight zones of the outer gas giants. Even at the lonely distance of Pluto, the solar wind continues to dominate the spatial environment with unquestioned authority. The light from the sun may have faded to a mere brilliant point in the ink-black sky, but its physical touch remains potent and absolute. Here in the freezing, shadowy depths of the Kuiper Belt, the golden rush of charged particles still flows outward, maintaining the expanding architecture of our solar neighbourhood. This deep space dominion means that true isolation within the solar system is an absolute physical impossibility. Every chunk of rock and ice out to the very fringes of our local geography remains submerged within the sun's sweeping atmospheric exhalation. The star's invisible reach commands the environment, ensuring that even the darkest planetary shores feel the warmth of the solar breath. Surprisingly, the universe at this scale reveals a paradox of density, as particles in this wind are incredibly sparse. Despite the immense, continuous outpouring of mass from the sun, the sheer volume of interplanetary space stretches this plasma into a whisper-thin veil. A single cubic centimetre of this environment might contain only a handful of protons, a desolation that defies ordinary human comprehension. This extreme scarcity creates a vacuum far more perfect and absolute than the most advanced, meticulously sealed laboratory chamber ever constructed on Earth. If an astronaut were to somehow step outside their shielded capsule to feel this wind, there would be no pressure, no rushing sensation, and no tactile breeze. The ferocious million-mile-per-hour storm exists as a ghostly mathematical reality, rather than a physical force you could touch. Yet, in the grand calculus of celestial mechanics, these isolated, lonely particles collectively wield tremendous system-shaping power. They carry the sun's magnetic field with them, stretching invisible lines of force across billions of miles of empty space. The true majesty of the solar wind lies in its ethereal nature, a tempest built almost entirely out of pristine, undisturbed nothingness. Notice the magnetic field spiralling outward through the void, like a cosmic ballerina's skirt spinning with the rotational rhythm of the sun. Because the charged plasma is highly conductive, it drags the sun's intense magnetic lines of force directly into the interplanetary vacuum. As the star completes its month-long rotation, these embedded magnetic field lines are continuously twisted into an elegant, expanding Archimedean spiral. This majestic, rippling structure, known to physicists as the Parker spiral, permeates the entire solar system with sweeping arcs of magnetic tension. It dictates the pathways along which the solar particles must travel, guiding the invisible river of plasma through the dark like unseen rails. The sweeping folds of this magnetic skirt create regions of fast and slow wind that crash into each other, birthing colossal, silent shock waves. These rotating magnetic ripples offer a dynamic, ever-changing topology to a space that otherwise appears utterly empty. They act as a sprawling, invisible web that connects the planets directly back to the fiery surface of their parent star. Through this spinning, spiraling dance of magnetism and plasma, the sun weaves the very fabric of the local cosmic environment. Looking beyond this spinning magnetic skirt, one finds that the universe outside this solar bubble is pressing back with its own interstellar dust and gas. The vast, yawning stretches of the Milky Way are not entirely empty, but filled with a diffuse, ancient medium of cold atoms and cosmic radiation. This galactic ocean possesses its own distinct pressure, a quiet but relentless force bearing down on the expanding territory of the sun. For billions of miles, the solar wind faces no true resistance, speeding outward through the vacuum with unchallenged dominance. Eventually, however, The outward thrust of the local plasma encounters the deep, heavy currents of the interstellar medium. The surrounding galaxy pushes inward with cosmic rays, magnetic fields, and the drifting ashes of long-dead supernovas demanding its own space. This creates an epic, invisible clash of titans on a scale that dwarfs the entire planetary system. It is a slow, grinding stalemate between the brilliant hot breath of a single star and the cold, eternal weight of the surrounding cosmos. The expanding solar wind cannot flow outward forever. It must eventually reckon with the crushing immensity of the deep galaxy. This cosmic structure is forged in the balance of these forces, as the immense outward pressure of our star creates a protective bubble called the heliosphere. Like a massive balloon inflated against the crushing depths of the ocean, the solar wind carves out a distinct shielded cavity within the interstellar medium. This gargantuan invisible sphere encompasses all the planets, all the moons, and the vast majority of the icy bodies drifting in the dark. Every human triumph, every historic event, and every terrestrial memory has unfolded deep within the safe confines of this stellar bubble. It is our planetary system's first and most critical line of defense against a hostile, unforgiving galactic neighborhood. Without the heliosphere's constant, inflation-like pressure, the local environment of Earth would be fundamentally, perhaps catastrophically, transformed. If we were to look closer at the consequences of losing this defense, we would realize that without this vast magnetic shield, our planetary system would be constantly bombarded by harsh galactic radiation. The broader Milky Way is a violent, energetic arena, filled with subatomic shrapnel fired from the cataclysmic deaths of massive stars. These cosmic rays are devastatingly fast and carry enough energy to shatter DNA and strip away delicate planetary atmospheres. The heliosphere acts as an immense invisible deflector shield, absorbing and redirecting the vast majority of this lethal interstellar crossfire. The outward-pushing solar wind and its embedded magnetic fields physically sweep the most dangerous galactic particles away from the vulnerable inner planets. It creates a tranquil, sheltered harbour amidst the chaotic, raging storms of the wider universe. Life on Earth owes its continued peaceful evolution to the unyielding strength of this colossal, protective bubble. Were the sun's outgassing to suddenly cease and the heliosphere collapse, the terrestrial worlds would immediately face the raw, unmitigated fury of the cosmos. The fragile conditions required for habitability are preserved only because our star actively forces the dangerous galaxy to keep its distance. Travelling at 1,000,000 miles per hour, it takes years for a single proton ejected from the sun to reach the outer limits of this domain. The sheer, terrifying scale of the heliosphere dwarfs the distances between the planets, turning the journey of the solar wind into an epic multi-year odyssey. A particle born in a violent solar flare will speed past Earth in mere days, yet it must sail through the blackness for decades before nearing the edge. During this long, silent voyage, the plasma grows colder, thinner, and less energetic as it spreads out across the expanding spherical volume. The bright, blinding furnace of its origin gradually fades into a tiny, indistinct prick of light, offering no warmth to the voyaging proton. Time and distance slowly sap the fierce momentum of the star's exhalation as it crosses the icy, forgotten hinterlands of the system. By the time these ancient particles finally approach the ultimate boundary, they have traversed a gulf of over 10 billion miles. They are the exhausted, fading vanguard of the sun's influence, carrying the last, dying whispers of solar heat into the ultimate freeze. Their prolonged journey perfectly illustrates the staggering, unfathomable immensity of the space we call our local neighbourhood. Eventually, this energetic outward flow must meet the ancient, drifting material of the Milky Way in a final, quiet confrontation. At the extreme, ragged edges of the heliosphere, the exhausted solar wind finally loses the strength to push the interstellar ocean back any further. Here, in a realm untouched by sunlight, the hot, tenuous breath of our star crashes into the cold, dense reality of the greater galaxy. This meeting place is not a solid wall, but a vast, turbulent transition zone where two drastically different cosmic environments violently intermingle. The outward rushing particles pile up, heat intensely, and deflect sideways as they strike the immovable weight of the interstellar medium. It is a boundary defined by invisible chaos, where the familiar physics of the solar system begin to break down and yield to alien forces. Beyond this point, the Sun's authority is completely extinguished, replaced by the ancient wandering currents of the local galactic cloud. The golden rush of charged particles is finally absorbed, becoming just another microscopic contribution to the endless cosmic void. It is the definitive end of the journey, where the long exhalation of the solar breath dissolves forever into the dark. Before it dissolves forever into the dark, that long journey must pass through a zone of profound transformation. Far beyond the ice giant that guards our outer realm, the relentless outward rush of the sun's exhalation finally begins to falter against the crushing weight of the deep cosmos. The hypersonic winds that have travelled unhindered across vast empty expanses encounter an invisible resistance that slowly saps their immense forward momentum. This slowing is not a gentle, gradual fading, but a dramatic shift in the architecture of the void. The particles that once raced outward at terrifying speeds find themselves pushing against a thickening tide of ancient cosmic material. It is a monumental struggle played out on a scale that defies human imagination, a battle of pressures in the freezing twilight. As you rest here, breathing softly and steadily, allow the tension in your own muscles to slowly bleed away, mirroring this distant cosmic deceleration. The solar wind, exhausted by its extended flight, prepares to surrender its blistering velocity to the heavy, stagnant ocean of interstellar space. This abrupt deceleration creates a distinct, chaotic boundary layer known as the termination shock. Instead of smoothly blending into the surrounding environment, the solar plasma crashes into it, forging a turbulent and highly defined frontier. It is the initial indication that the protective bubble we inhabit has a physical edge, a place where the rules of our local system are suddenly overwritten. Deep within this unseen border, the organised flow of the outward wind breaks down entirely. The precise spiralling magnetic lines that guided the plasma for so long buckle and collapse under the immense opposing pressure. What was once a clean, directed current shatters into a chaotic frenzy of trapped and swirling energy. This standing shockwave is a permanent feature of our distant skies, forever hovering in the dark reaches of our celestial neighbourhood. It acts as an energetic threshold, guarding the exit to the interstellar ocean while bearing the brunt of the continuous collision. Picture a rapid mountain river suddenly expanding, warming and slowing down as it dumps into a vast, heavy sea. The water that previously carved straight, forceful paths through narrow canyons is instantly dispersed, churning upon itself as it meets a greater volume. The termination shock behaves in precisely this manner, transforming a sleek, supersonic stream into a chaotic, meandering expanse. The forward momentum is instantly traded for internal heat and chaotic turbulence as the plasma plows into the heavy cosmic tide. The scattered particles drift sideways, unable to maintain their straight outward trajectories against the overwhelming density of the deep space medium. This creates a sprawling, frothing delta of electrified gas that lines the inner edge of our system's boundary. The elegant simplicity of the outward journey is lost forever in this turbulent mixing zone. The stellar river has found its ocean, and the resulting collision is a masterpiece of fluid dynamics written in invisible plasma. Here, in the heart of the termination shock, the travelling solar particles compress, heat up violently, and become intensely turbulent. The sheer kinetic energy of their hypersonic journey has nowhere else to go, so it translates directly into searing, localized heat. The plasma effectively cooks itself as it slams into the invisible wall, spiking in temperature even as it resides in the coldest depths of space. If we were to look closer, we would see electrons and protons rebounding off each other in a frantic, inescapable dance. The once sparse particles are suddenly packed tightly together, their individual paths tangled in a chaotic web of electromagnetic friction. This compression turns a ghostly whispering breeze into a dense roaring storm of energized matter. As you sink deeper into comfort, feeling the weight of your body supported perfectly, imagine this distant, heated frenzy occurring in absolute silence. The violent compression remains locked safely away, completely separated from the tranquil stillness of your resting form. Surprisingly, the outward speed of the wind at this specific threshold suddenly drops below the speed of sound in the plasma medium. In the near vacuum of space, sound does not travel as a pressure wave through air, but as a subtle vibration through the electrified gas. For its entire journey, the solar wind has vastly outpaced this internal speed limit, moving with supersonic arrogance. At the termination shock, that dominance is instantly shattered. The plasma is forced to travel at a subsonic pace, making it fundamentally responsive to the shifting pressures and waves of its new environment. It can no longer ignore the physical reality of the galaxy pressing inward. It must yield and adapt to the incoming cosmic tide. This transition from supersonic to subsonic flow alters the very physics of the plasma, rendering it sluggish and deeply sensitive to disruption. The once proud stellar exhalation is humbled, reduced to a crawling, hesitant drift along the edge of the abyss. An intrepid human ambassador crossed this turbulent threshold at the dawn of the new millennium, sending back the initial direct measurements of the shockwave. A fragile golden spacecraft launched decades prior finally pierced this invisible barrier, translating the chaotic physics into a stream of binary data. This distant sentinel provided the initial tactile proof of a boundary that had previously existed only in the minds of theoretical physicists. The robotic explorer felt the sudden, jarring shift in plasma density and temperature, recording the violent transition with its aging, delicate instruments. It proved that the termination shock was not a smooth gradient, but a sharp, undeniable cliff in the architecture of space. The data trickled back to Earth as a faint radio whisper, taking hours to cross the immense silent void. It was a moment of profound triumph, marking the exact instant humanity reached out and physically touched the rough, turbulent shores of the interstellar ocean. The tiny probe sailed bravely through the invisible storm, forging a path into the true unknown. Magnetic fields in this transitional region twist and fold upon themselves in unpredictable, shifting patterns. The elegant spiraling lines of magnetic tension that once stretched cleanly from the sun are crushed and tangled by the sudden deceleration. They wrap around each other like knotted threads, creating localized pockets of intense magnetic chaos that trap and accelerate passing particles. These tangled fields behave like a tempestuous invisible sea, frothing with magnetic bubbles that grow, merge, and violently pop. The structured, predictable nature of the inner solar system's magnetism is completely erased in this chaotic frontier zone. It is a graveyard of magnetic structure, where the sun's organized influence is ground down by the sheer friction of the cosmic ocean. As your breathing falls into a slow, unconscious rhythm, let the image of these tangled, distant storms fade into a soothing abstraction. The chaotic folding of magnetic lines is a distant reality, far removed from the quiet, rhythmic peace of your current state. Because traditional sound cannot travel in this near vacuum, this incredibly violent celestial collision remains entirely silent to human ears. If you could somehow stand at the epicenter of the termination shock, amidst the searing heat and twisting magnetic storms, you would hear absolutely nothing. The immense release of energy, the crashing waves of plasma, and the tearing of magnetic fields all occur in a profound, deafening quiet. This silence makes the violence of the shockwave deeply eerie and almost ghostly in its execution. It is a massive, cataclysmic event unfolding constantly, yet it possesses none of the roaring acoustics of an earthly storm or a crashing ocean wave. The universe orchestrates its most dramatic transitions in a state of absolute muted stillness. The sheer scale of the energy being transferred is terrifying, but the lack of accompanying sound renders it beautiful and serene. It is a silent, golden rush of destruction and rebirth, hidden away in the darkest, quietest corners of our cosmic neighbourhood. Sensitive instruments aboard our distant probes detected a sudden, dramatic spike in plasma density as the outward push met the initial resistance of deep space. The whispering, incredibly sparse veil of the solar wind is violently compacted, crowding the isolated protons and electrons into a tight, dense formation. It is as if a ghostly, dispersed fog is suddenly compressed into a thick, glowing wall of energized matter. This wall of density acts as a physical barrier, a thickened shell of localized atmosphere that surrounds our entire planetary system. The particles that were once flying free are now packed shoulder to shoulder, forced to navigate the incredibly crowded and chaotic environment of the boundary. The vacuum of space is suddenly, locally filled with this dense, churning stellar debris. The spike in density is the unmistakable signature of a world ending and another beginning. It is the solidifying of a phantom wind into a tangible physical obstacle at the edge of the night. This turbulent barrier is not a perfect static sphere, but actively pulsates and shifts inward and outward with the star's cyclical magnetic heartbeat. As the parent star grows active and fierce, sending out stronger winds, the termination shock is physically pushed outward, expanding our protective bubble. When the star quiets and its exhalation weakens, the heavy interstellar ocean presses inward, forcing the shock wave to retreat closer to the inner planets. This makes the boundary a living, breathing entity, responding directly to the rhythmic pulse of the distant sun. It expands and contracts over the decades, a massive, invisible lung inhaling and exhaling against the weight of the deep cosmos. The planets, safely nestled far inside, are entirely unaware of this shifting, titanic struggle occurring on their behalf. The termination shock is a dynamic, ever-changing frontier, a testament to the ongoing dialogue between our star and the surrounding galaxy. It stands as a shifting monument to the delicate, perfect balance that shelters us from the eternal dark. Beyond that shifting monument to our delicate balance, the eternal dark gives way to a vast, thick barrier known as the Heliopause sheath. This sprawling region is the true frontier of our star's influence, constructed entirely of compressed and heated solar material. It is a purgatory of plasma, a swollen shell where the outgassing wind is forced to linger. Moving through this immense cavity, the environment feels drastically different from the clean, rushing vacuum of the inner system. The previously untamed exhalation of our star is now tightly packed, creating a spongy, resilient cushion that wraps around the entire solar neighbourhood. It is the celestial equivalent of a heavy, suffocating fog banking against an invisible mountain range. Here, the physics of deep space become intensely claustrophobic and saturated with confined energy. The solar matter, robbed of its forward momentum, expands laterally, swelling into a thickened membrane of electrified gas. This massive accumulation serves as the primary battleground where the sun's ultimate retreat slowly plays out. Deep within this thickened membrane, the once furious particles find themselves moving sluggishly, drained of their former supersonic vitality. They are forced into a reluctant sideways drift, completely deflected by the approaching insurmountable wall of the interstellar medium. The golden rush that previously conquered billions of miles is reduced to a hesitant, crawling crawl along the edge of the abyss. Picture a vast crowd of exhausted runners suddenly forced to turn and walk parallel to an unyielding, invisible wall. The plasma flows lazily toward the tail of our local system, pushed along by the relentless pressure of the opposing cosmic tide. It forms a slow-moving, turbulent river of trapped energy, wandering aimlessly through the frigid twilight. This agonizingly slow progression strips the solar wind of its remaining identity, forcing it to submit to the grander currents of the surrounding galaxy. The individual protons and electrons lose their singular purpose, swirling in confused, meandering eddies. They are entirely at the mercy of the crushing interstellar forces they were once so easily able to repel. This thick wandering zone acts as an immense cosmic sponge, specifically designed by orbital mechanics to absorb the initial devastating impact of ambient galactic radiation. Before the lethal, high-energy shrapnel of the wider universe can reach the fragile inner planets, it must first navigate this dense, chaotic marshland. The heliosheath essentially catches the first heaviest blows of the surrounding stellar storm. As you lie still, feeling the comforting, protective weight of your blankets, know that an infinitely larger shield is currently absorbing the universe's quiet fury on your behalf. The sluggish plasma here acts as a dampening field, scattering and weakening the incoming cosmic rays through countless microscopic collisions. It diffuses the sharpest, most dangerous energies into a harmless scattered glow. Without this spongy, absorptive layer, the sharp boundary of the termination shock alone would not be enough to hold back the lethal cosmic tide. It requires this deep, tangled thickness to successfully bleed the energy from the incoming stellar debris. The heliosheath sacrifices its own structural integrity to ensure the serene safety of the worlds nestled far behind it. Surprisingly, the architecture of this sponge is not uniform, but constructed from colossal magnetic bubbles that measure millions of miles wide. These immense, unseen spheres of trapped magnetic force froth and pop continuously within the transitional space, creating a violently boiling cosmic cauldron. They are born from the twisted, compressed magnetic field lines that were shattered at the termination shock. This seething, bubbling foam behaves like a heavily carbonated liquid trapped under immense invisible pressure. As these gargantuan structures expand and collide, they undergo explosive reconnections, tearing and reforming their magnetic skins in brilliant, unseen flashes of trapped energy. The entire region is alive with this silent, slow-motion effervescence. Trapped within these vast popping spheres, solar particles are accelerated to wild, unpredictable speeds before being violently expelled into the neighbouring void. The bubbles serve as erratic engines of turbulence, ensuring the heliosheath never settles into a quiet, peaceful state. It is a constantly churning frontier, violently bubbling away in the utter darkness. If we were to look closer at the microscopic chaos of this foam, we would see electrons and protons actively separating from their long-held bonds. Forced apart by the extreme, unpredictable magnetic pressures, these fundamental building blocks tear away from one another, generating complex shifting electrical currents in the deep vacuum. The once unified plasma is violently segregated into sprawling rivers of opposing charges. These invisible currents snake through the bubbling void, creating localized electrical fields of immense, startling power. They act as phantom circuits, wrapping around the magnetic foam and altering the flow of the sluggish solar wind even further. The region becomes a highly charged, dangerously unpredictable labyrinth of shifting electrical forces. This grand, unseen circuitry constantly rewires itself, responding instantly to the popping bubbles and the grinding pressure of the interstellar tide. The sheer scale of these wandering electrical rivers dwarfs anything that could ever be generated on a terrestrial world. It is a masterpiece of raw, untamed electromagnetism playing out in the total absence of solid ground. The sheer volume of this electrified labyrinth is difficult to fathom, as the heliosheath is incredibly expansive, spanning billions of miles across the outer edges of our system. It is not a thin, easily crossed border, but a vast, sprawling territory that constitutes the thickest layer of our protective solar bubble. Crossing it requires navigating a distance that dwarfs the span between the Sun and the outermost planets. Allow your chest to rise and fall in a slow, deep rhythm, finding peace in the vast, open expanse of your own relaxed breath. The sheer size of this boundary zone is a testament to the sheer volume of material our star has exhaled over its ancient lifetime. It stretches outward into the dark, a massive, swollen buffer guarding the gates to the open galaxy. Travelling through this spongy expanse is a journey of extreme isolation, far removed from the comforting light and warmth of the distant inner solar system. It is a sprawling no man's land, holding the line against the eternal crush of the deep cosmos. This immense thickness is the ultimate quiet wilderness of our local celestial neighbourhood. Yet, despite its distance from the comforting hearth of our star, temperatures in this zone are paradoxically high, reaching tens of thousands of degrees. This intense, invisible heat is a direct product of the violent compression and the constant, explosive popping of the massive magnetic foam. The kinetic energy of the once fast solar wind has been entirely converted into a searing, chaotic fever. It seems completely contradictory to find such staggering heat in the darkest, most remote outskirts of the planetary system. The ambient space is completely devoid of stellar warmth, yet the tortured, confined plasma is actively boiling with trapped thermal energy. It is a hidden, invisible inferno blazing quietly in the depths of an eternal winter. This staggering temperature prevents the sluggish, crawling particles from ever truly freezing or losing their fundamental electrical properties. They remain highly energized, aggressively vibrating against the invisible walls of their confinement. The helio sheath burns with a phantom fire, fueled entirely by the friction of a dying stellar wind. This recorded heat, however, is merely a mathematical illusion of individual particle energy rather than a tangible radiating warmth. Because the density of the plasma is still unfathomably low, the sheer emptiness of the surrounding vacuum would instantly freeze any physical object passing through. The blazing hot particles are simply too sparse to transfer their intense thermal energy to a solid mass. If a solid vessel were to somehow linger in this inferno, it would shed its own internal warmth into the void far faster than the scattered burning protons could heat its hull. The terrifying temperature exists only on a microscopic scale, a phantom fever disconnected from the macroscopic reality of absolute zero. It is a paradox of thermal physics, a blazing furnace that possesses no actual ability to warm. This renders the helio sheath an environment of absolute, chilling contradictions, a place of intense violence hidden within an utterly freezing void. The seething, bubbling plasma dances with unimaginable energy, yet it dances utterly alone in the dark. It is a realm where the standard terrestrial definitions of hot and cold completely lose their traditional meaning. Seeping through the outer edges of this paradoxical furnace, atoms of neutral hydrogen from deep space begin to slowly leak into the thick layer. Unaffected by the tangled magnetic fields that trap the charged solar plasma, these ancient uncharged particles drift effortlessly past the ultimate boundary. They are silent invaders, slipping quietly into the swollen protective sponge of our solar domain. Once inside this turbulent mixing zone, these alien wanderers inevitably collide heavily with the trapped, sweltering solar protons. These unseen impacts are catastrophic on a subatomic level, violently stripping and exchanging electrons in the dark. The pristine, untouched material of the surrounding galaxy is finally, irreversibly tainted by the exhausted breath of our local star. Notice how your limbs feel heavy and perfectly still, anchored to the present moment, while distant, invisible forces collide in the unseen depths above. These microscopic impacts occur by the trillions every passing second, creating an unseen, chaotic friction within the already boiling magnetic foam. It is the very first physical mingling of local matter and the ancient dust of the deep void. These invisible, violent collisions spawn a completely new type of entity, creating highly energetic neutral atoms that are suddenly immune to the magnetic chaos around them. Stripped of their electrical charge but infused with the blistering heat of the collision, they are no longer bound by the tangled, frothing fields. They break free from the sluggish, meandering river, suddenly capable of travelling in straight, unhindered lines. Many of these newly forged particles immediately pivot and zip back toward the inner solar system, travelling inward as incredibly fast, ghostly messengers. They pass straight through the termination shock and the expanding solar wind, flying silently past the distant planets. They carry vital, encoded data about the exact temperature, density, and chaotic nature of the distant frontier. When highly sensitive instruments eventually catch these returning phantoms, they decode the physical reality of the distant, inaccessible boundary zone. These flying sparks of neutral matter are the only direct, incoming dispatches we receive from the edge of the dark. They quietly complete the immense circuit, bringing the story of the deep cosmic struggle all the way back to the warm, bright shores of our sun. When the story of the deep cosmic struggle finally returned to the sun, it brought with it a revelation that no astronomer or satellite had ever anticipated. In the year 2009, a lone sentinel tilted its mechanical gaze toward the absolute edge of our star's influence and witnessed an impossible phantom manifest in the dark. The interstellar boundary explorer, specifically engineered to intercept the ghostly neutral messengers that fly from the boundary, detected a massive and entirely unexpected ribbon of light wrapping around the heliosphere. This was not a subtle flicker or a minor anomaly in the digital data, but a gargantuan arch of energy that seemed to trace an invisible horizon across the entire sky. It was as if a celestial painter had taken a brush of high-velocity atoms and streaked a bold, brilliant line across the darkness, marking a geography we never knew existed. This structure shattered our previous concepts of a smooth, featureless exit into the void, revealing instead a frontier defined by sharp, organized patterns of raw power. For the first time, we realized that the very edge of our home was not a fading whisper of gas, but a place where energy coalesced into a stunning, structured monument. This ribbon became the defining landmark of the outer reaches, a herald of the complexities waiting in the dark. It stands as a testament to the surprises that await when we look at the universe through new eyes, revealing that the boundaries of our world are far more intricate than we ever dared to dream. However, when viewed through specialized energetic particle maps, the ribbon shines with a brilliance that rivals the sun itself in its own unique spectrum. It is a luminous ghost map, painted in the vibrant colors of high-velocity neutral atoms that highlight the secret contours of our cosmic shelter. These maps transform the void into a landscape of texture and form, revealing that what we once considered an empty abyss is actually teeming with structured, radiant activity. It is a staggering realization to know that such a colossal feature has been hovering above us since the dawn of time, invisible yet radiant. We lived for millennia unaware that a massive crown of energy was encircling our entire solar system, shielding us and defining our place in the void. This hidden brilliance reminds us that the most significant structures in our universe are often those that refuse to be seen by ordinary means, existing in a realm beyond our biological senses. This structure aligns with a mathematical perfection to the local interstellar magnetic field, a force that presses aggressively against our solar bubble from the outside. Like iron filings responding to an invisible magnet hidden beneath a sheet of glass, the atoms in this ribbon trace the exact lines of the galaxy's own magnetic grip. It is as if the Milky Way has reached out from the deep and left a visible indentation on the very skin of our heliosphere. This alignment reveals the immense, unseen power of the surrounding interstellar medium, which is far stronger than we once believed possible. The ribbon behaves like a topographical map of the pressure being applied by the local galactic cloud, showing us exactly where the outer void is pushing hardest against our defenses. By following these lines of light, we can see the invisible hand of the galaxy molding our local space into a specific resilient shape. As you lie still, feeling the natural weight of the world around you, imagine this distant magnetic pressure molding the very shape of our system. It is a physical dialogue written in the alignment of atoms, a testament to the fact that our home is constantly being shaped and defined by the greater forces of the celestial neighborhood. We are sculpted by the very vacuum that surrounds us, proving that even the most empty space is filled with powerful, formative intention. Scientists currently believe this structure acts as a massive magnetic mirror, reflecting solar particles back into the churning, heated depths of the Helios heath. As the sun's escaping breath strikes this energized wall, it finds no path forward into the broader galactic sea. Instead, the particles are turned back upon itself in a violent, invisible rebound, prevented from escaping the local domain of our star and being forced to remain within our borders. This reflection creates a self-contained cycle of energy that keeps our planetary environment far more pressurized and contained than we ever dared to imagine. If we were to look closer, we would see a relentless storm of protons and electrons being tossed back toward the sun like spray from a wave hitting a cliffside. This containment ensures that the energy exhaled by our star does not simply drift away and vanish into the dark, but stays to reinforce our shield. The ribbon serves as the ultimate boundary of our reservoir, a luminous dam holding back the solar wind and forcing it to recirculate in a perpetual loop. This creates a state of perpetual energetic tension, a vibrant feedback loop that defines the internal pressure of our cosmic sanctuary. It is the barrier that keeps our local fire from being snuffed out by the encroaching galactic cold, acting as a celestial furnace door that keeps the warmth inside. Surprisingly, the universe revealed this secret at a time when we thought our maps of the outer solar system were nearly complete. Its unexpected discovery completely reshaped our modern understanding of how the sun interacts with the broader ancient galaxy. Before this revelation, we viewed the solar system as a lonely, autonomous traveller, moving through an indifferent and mostly empty void that offered little resistance to our progress. The ribbon shattered this isolationist view, proving that we are physically and magnetically entwined with the Milky Way in a constant, high-energy dialogue. We now realise that the structure of our home is a collaborative work, a joint production between the outward pressure of our star and the inward weight of the cosmos. This shift in perspective has forced astronomers to rewrite the fundamental textbooks of solar physics, acknowledging that we are part of a larger breathing organism. Notice how your own breath connects you to the air around you, much like our star is inextricably linked to the galactic currents that surround it. We're no longer an island, but a vibrant participant in the grand architecture of the Milky Way, tied to its shifting moods and magnetic storms. This discovery has transformed the edge of the solar system from a lonely exit into a crowded, busy intersection where the local meets the universal. Deep within the heart of this energetic arch, the brightest and most intense parts of the ribbon point directly toward the distant, ancient constellation of Scorpius. This specific orientation is not a mere coincidence of geometry, but a direct consequence of the way the solar system is tilted as it plows through space. The stars of the Scorpion watch over the most violent and active sector of our boundary, where galactic pressures are most concentrated and ferocious. It is here that the head-on collision between our solar wind and the interstellar medium is most direct, creating a peak of radiance that acts as a beacon. To look towards Scorpius is to look toward the primary impact point of our system's journey, the place where our shield is tested most severely. This alignment anchors our understanding of our motion through the galaxy, giving us a fixed landmark for the most energetic part of our frontier. The ribbon glows most fiercely where the resistance is greatest, marking the bow of our solar ship as it parts the waves of the interstellar ocean. This celestial pointer reminds us that we are moving with purpose and direction through a landscape of invisible obstacles. The light in Scorpius is the signature of our forward progress against the ancient winds of the Milky Way, a luminous bow wave in the dark. Over time, the intensity and position of this energetic band subtly shift and evolve, proving that the solar boundary is a living, changing frontier. It is not a static piece of cosmic architecture, but a dynamic membrane that reacts to the shifting tides of the universe. As the sun moves through regions of varying density in the local interstellar cloud, the ribbon brightens, dims, and even migrates across the sky like a phantom. It pulsates with the rhythm of the solar cycle, thickening when the sun is active and thinning when the star's breath grows quiet and faint. This constant motion reminds us that our cosmic shield is a reactive participant in the environment, constantly adapting to the pressures it encounters. It is a vibrant, shifting landscape that ensures our frontier is never the same from one decade to the next, a testament to cosmic fluidity. As you feel the gentle, rhythmic pulse of your own heart, imagine this distant ribbon pulsing in a similar fashion, keeping time with the star. It is the visual evidence of a system that is fundamentally alive, constantly renegotiating its borders with the surrounding dark. We live inside a breathing vessel, protected by a ribbon that dances to the silent music of the spheres, ensuring our safety through its constant adaptation. No existing theoretical model or complex computer simulation predicted the existence of this bright, organized structure before it was physically observed. For decades, the greatest minds in astrophysics believed they had successfully mapped the invisible boundaries of our system using advanced mathematics. The ribbon arrived as a profound shock, a structure that fundamentally defied every simulation that had ever been run on a supercomputer, proving the limits of our foresight. It stands as a humbling reminder that the universe still holds vast structural secrets that operate outside the current limits of our human logic. This unexpected discovery proved that our understanding of plasma physics is still in its infancy when applied to the grand scale of the galaxy. The ribbon is a testament to the fact that nature is far more creative and complex than our algorithms can currently anticipate. It invites us to remain curious, reminding us that even in the parts of space we think we know best, there are still wonders waiting. Even the most rigorous science can be surprised by a sudden arch of light appearing where none should be. The ribbon is a beautiful correction to our human arrogance, a luminous reminder that the universe will always have the final word in the story of our discovery. This structure serves as a glowing fingerprint, revealing the unseen forces of the Milky Way that are physically pressing on our home from every direction. By studying the specific contours and the fluctuating brightness of this ribbon, we can finally visualize the immense invisible hands of the galaxy. It is the only direct visual evidence we possess of the raw power that the interstellar medium exerts upon our local sanctuary. Like a fingerprint left on a soft surface, the ribbon shows us exactly where the pressure of the surrounding space is most intense. It reveals the presence of magnetic fields and gas clouds that are otherwise completely undetectable to our current instruments, hiding in the gaps between stars. This allows us to map the invisible currents of the local galactic neighborhood with unprecedented detail, turning the void into a map. As you rest here, grounded and secure, consider how this glowing arch acts as the interface between the familiar and the alien. It is the visible manifestation of a struggle that has been occurring for billions of years, finally revealed to our eyes. We can finally see the face of the wind that has been blowing against us since the very moment our sun was born. The ribbon ultimately anchors the heliosphere to the broader, ancient magnetic currents that define the local galactic neighborhood. It acts as a bridge, a structural tie that prevents our solar system from being a completely isolated island drifting aimlessly in the void. Through this luminous band, we are physically tethered to the history and the energy of the Milky Way, becoming an integrated part of a much larger tapestry. This connection ensures that we are swept along with the grand movements of the galaxy, synchronized with the turning of the stellar wheel. It is the final proof that the sun's domain is not a separate entity, but a specialized organ within a much larger body. The ribbon is the umbilical cord of light that connects our local star to the vast, churning ocean of the interstellar medium. As we sail through this vast, churning ocean of the interstellar medium, the collective imagination of astronomers once painted a picture of our home as a celestial wanderer with a long, elegant tail. For decades, it was confidently assumed that the heliosphere was shaped like a massive comet, its gossamer wake trailing millions of miles behind the sun's direction of motion. This traditional model suggested a sleek aerodynamic silhouette carved by the relentless pressure of the galaxy, creating a distinct head and a tapering, ethereal tail. It was a comforting and familiar geometry that mirrored the smaller, icy travelers within our own solar neighborhood, giving us a sense of place and direction. We envisioned a system that left a persistent, fading signature in the dark as it moved, a symbol of our constant forward-moving journey through the prehistoric deep. This comet-like shape became the standard map of our cosmic territory, a visual anchor for our understanding of the Sun's influence. Surprisingly, the most recent data harvested from our robotic emissaries has shattered this traditional comet-like silhouette, suggesting instead a form that is far more complex and compact. It appears our protective shield might actually resemble a deflated spherical quiescent or a rounded pressurized bubble, devoid of the long trailing tail we once imagined. This newer model replaces the tapering wake with a stubby, folded structure that is pinched and distorted by immense external forces. It is a shape that speaks of incredible pressure from the outside, moulding the solar wind into a dense and protective cocoon that hugs the solar system tightly. This discovery forces us to rethink the very nature of our system's interaction with the void, visualizing it not as a thin stream, but as a robust, rounded barrier. It is a fundamental shift in our cosmic geography, revealing a home that is much more contained and resilient than the maps of old suggested. This unexpected geometry is a direct result of our relentless progress, as the Sun moves through the local interstellar cloud at a staggering speed of roughly 50,000 miles per hour. While this velocity seems immense by terrestrial standards, it is the steady and driving force that defines the physical dimensions of our entire cosmic shelter. We are not a static entity, but a perpetual traveller, ploughing through the diffuse medium of the Milky Way with unwavering and silent momentum. This constant motion provides the dynamic pressure necessary to inflate our protective bubble against the crushing weight of the surrounding galaxy. It is the engine of our existence, a tireless and invisible flight through the ancient gas clouds that define our corner of the universe. As you rest here, feel the profound stillness of your own hands and feet, perfectly supported while our star carries us on this high-speed odyssey through the night. This rapid movement through the cosmic sea creates a distinct bow wave ahead of the system, much like the water parting before the prow of a mighty ship. As we plunge headlong into the interstellar medium, the solar wind and the galactic gas collide in a monumental, invisible surge of energy. This structure serves as the vanguard of our presence, the very first ripple of our star's influence, as it encounters the ancient and heavy currents of the deep. It is a place of intense compression and redirection, where the galaxy is forced to acknowledge and move around the solar domain in a grand, sweeping arc. This bow wave is the physical manifestation of our star's defiance, a shimmering front that clears the way for our continued journey through the interstellar dark. It marks the precise point where the Sun's forward motion meets the resistance of the Milky Way, forging a path for everything we know. If we were to look closer at the rear of this celestial vessel, we would find measurements from the Cassini spacecraft that provide a surprising hint about its strange architecture. Immense magnetic fields appear to pinch the tail end of our system, acting like a giant invisible hand that squeezes the trailing plasma into its unique, rounded form. This magnetic pinching prevents the solar wind from escaping into a long, thin tail, keeping the protective energy of our star concentrated near the planets. This reveals a level of structural organization that we once thought impossible in the chaotic and distant depths of the outer boundary. The tail of our system is not a leak or a fading remnant, but a carefully sculpted and contained part of our system's magnetic skeleton. It ensures that the heliosphere remains a tight and efficient shield, holding its shape against the relentless pressure of the local galactic environment. The true geometric profile of our solar bubble depends entirely on the delicate and high-stakes balance of pressure from the outside and the inside. It is a constant, invisible tug-of-war between the hot, outgoing solar wind and the cold, incoming weight of the interstellar medium. If the Sun's internal pressure increases, our shield expands and rounds out. If the galaxy's weight grows, our borders contract and distort under the strain. This equilibrium is never truly static, but a vibrating and living negotiation that dictates the very size of our habitable room in the universe. We exist within the sweet spot of this gargantuan squeeze, a sanctuary defined by two opposing and titanic forces that never cease their struggle. The shape of our shield is the physical record of this ongoing multi-billion-year conversation between our star and the wider galaxy that surrounds us. Deep within the leading edge of this magnetic shield, dust grains drifting from ancient supernovas constantly scrape against our borders as we fly through the void. These tiny, solid remnants of long-dead stars act as a cosmic abrasive, bombarding our bubble as we plough through the interstellar ocean at high speed. While the magnetic fields successfully deflect the charged plasma, these neutral, solid specks of heavy elements can sometimes pierce the veil, entering our system like microscopic grit. They are the physical debris of the galaxy's violent and ancient history, testing the integrity of our frontline defences with every passing second of our journey. This constant scraping highlights the invisible headwind we face, a dusty and ancient current that our shield must continuously part to ensure our safe passage. Notice the quiet rhythm of your own breathing, a small and steady internal pulse that provides a calm anchor while we navigate this dusty stellar wind. Mapping this colossal and invisible structure requires synthesizing complex data from a fleet of spacecraft scattered across billions of miles of space. No single instrument has the perspective to see the entire shape of the heliosphere at once. Instead, the form must be pieced together like a gargantuan multi-dimensional jigsaw puzzle. We must combine the high-energy atom maps from Earth-orbiting satellites with the direct in-situ measurements of plasma density from our loneliest probes. Scientists must also account for the indirect hints gathered by planetary missions visiting distant worlds, weaving these fragments into a single, coherent narrative of our system's form. It is a masterpiece of human collaboration and mathematical deduction, allowing us to visualize a structure that is far too large to ever be viewed from the outside. Through this synthesis, we transform raw numbers and faint signals into a vivid map of our place within the grand architecture of the Milky Way. If we were travelling through a denser, high-pressure nebula or a crowded star-forming region, our protective bubble might be crushed to a fraction of its current volume. Such a compression would bring the harsh galactic environment and its lethal radiation much closer to the worlds we inhabit, fundamentally altering our security. The fact that we reside in this specific clear region of the galactic woods is a major factor in the stability and shape of the shield that preserves us. This shield reaches its absolute limit at the Heliopause, the exact surface where the outward rushing solar wind is finally brought to a complete standstill by the weight of the interstellar medium. It is the final, definitive edge of our star's physical kingdom, a place where the sun's long-distance exhalation simply runs out of strength to push any further. At this precise coordinates, the pressure of the solar plasma and the pressure of the galactic gas reach a perfect unmoving equilibrium in the dark. For billions of miles, the solar wind has reigned supreme, but here it meets its match in the cold, ancient material of the Milky Way. This boundary is not merely a mathematical line, but a physical reality that dictates the extent of our local sanctuary. It marks the transition from a star-dominated environment to a galaxy-dominated one, a threshold where the rules of the neighbourhood finally change. As you settle into a state of deep relaxation, visualize this point of perfect balance where motion ceases and a profound stillness takes hold. The solar wind, having travelled for decades, finally rests against the immense quiet wall of the deep cosmos. This is the ultimate destination of the sun's breath, a silent frontier where the local and the universal meet in a permanent peaceful embrace. This absolute boundary behaves as a nearly impenetrable wall, repelling the cold, dense plasma that fills the surrounding reaches of the Milky Way. While the interstellar medium is composed of the same fundamental particles as our solar wind, the two environments refuse to mix, separated by a sharp cliff of magnetic and thermal differences. The Heliopause acts as a celestial border patrol, ensuring that the alien, ancient gas of the galaxy stays strictly on the outside of our home. The cold plasma of the interstellar medium is far more sluggish and dense than the hot, thin material exhaled by our star. When these two massive bodies of gas encounter one another, they glide past like oil and water, creating a sheer surface that stretches for billions of miles across the void. This separation is the primary reason why the space within our system remains distinctly different from the space that exists between the stars. The integrity of this nearly impenetrable wall is what allows the solar system to maintain its unique chemical and physical identity. It is a massive, invisible fortress that stands guard at the edge of the night, preserving the pristine environment that we call home. Without this clear-cut division, our system would be flooded with alien material, erasing the boundary that defines our place in the universe. Deep within the darkness, a relentless storm of cosmic rays, extremely energetic particles fired from the hearts of distant supernovas, crashes continuously into this barrier. These subatomic projectiles travel at nearly the speed of light, carrying with them the violent history of dying stars from across the vast expanse of the galaxy. They are a constant, high-speed shrapnel that would shred the delicate balance of our system if they were allowed to enter unchecked. The Heliopause stands as the first and most critical line of defense against this galactic bombardment, catching the brunt of the impact in the silent vacuum. As these cosmic rays strike the boundary, they encounter a wall of magnetic tension that is specifically tuned to repel their incredible kinetic energy. It is a slow-motion, invisible collision occurring on a scale that dwarfs the entire planetary system, a permanent battle between local safety and galactic chaos. Imagine these energetic particles as sparks of light glancing off an invisible shield, redirected back into the deep ocean of the Milky Way. The Heliopause is the sieve that filters this radiation, protecting everything inside its embrace from the raw, unmitigated fury of the deeper cosmos. It is a tireless guardian, silently weathering a storm that has been raging since the beginning of time. Surprisingly, over 70% of these highly dangerous galactic cosmic rays are deflected away by the sheer magnetic tension of the Heliopause. This is a staggering level of efficiency for a structure that is made entirely of invisible gas and magnetic fields, rather than solid matter. The shield acts as a massive magnetic mirror, reflecting the majority of the incoming radiation back out into the interstellar void before it can ever reach the planets. This high percentage of deflection is the only reason the inner solar system remains a relatively quiet and habitable region of space. If even a small fraction more of these particles were to pierce the veil, the radiation environment on worlds like Earth would be fundamentally, perhaps lethally, altered. The Heliopause is an incredibly effective filter, meticulously sorting through the incoming galactic material and allowing only the least harmful elements to pass. As you feel the natural, heavy comfort of your own body, consider how this 70% reduction provides the peaceful background for all life to flourish. We are the beneficiaries of a cosmic filtering process that operates far beyond our sight, but upon which our very existence depends. The Heliopause is the silent architect of our safety, working tirelessly to ensure the environment remains balanced and secure. Without this natural deflector shielding the inner planets, life on Earth would face severe and potentially lethal radiation levels every single day. The atmosphere of our planet and our own local magnetic field provide significant protection, but they would be overwhelmed by the sheer volume of galactic cosmic rays without the Heliopause as a primary buffer. It is the outer wall of our castle, reducing the incoming threat to a manageable level before it ever reaches our terrestrial shores. The presence of this deflector has been a constant throughout the long history of biological evolution, providing the stable radiation background necessary for complex life to develop. If the Heliopause were to suddenly vanish, the influx of high-energy particles would likely strip away ozone layers and cause widespread genetic damage to all living things. It is the silent, essential prerequisite for the existence of the biosphere, a shield that was in place long before the first cell ever divided. notice the quiet, rhythmic peace of your current surroundings, a tranquility that is made possible by this distant, invisible labour. The Heliopause is the unsung hero of our biological story, a celestial umbrella that keeps the harshest weather of the galaxy from reaching our doorstep. It is the guardian of our genetic legacy, standing watch at the edge of the system to preserve the delicate conditions of our home. If we were to look closer, we would see that the boundary is not a solid, static wall, but rather a delicate, shifting magnetic tension between two opposing plasma environments. It is a thin, translucent membrane of energy that ripples and bends in response to the changing pressures of the solar wind and the interstellar medium. This fluidity allows the Heliopause to absorb impacts and distribute energy across its massive surface, much like a trampoline catching a falling weight. This delicate nature means the boundary is constantly in motion, fluctuating by millions of miles as the two environments negotiate their territory. It is a living interface, a site of constant exchange and adjustment where the magnetic fields of the Sun and the galaxy are intricately woven together. This structure is more akin to a soap bubble than a stone wall, possessing a resilient strength that comes from its very flexibility. The shifting tension of the Heliopause ensures that the shield never becomes brittle or prone to failure under the immense pressures of the deep. It is a masterpiece of fluid dynamics and electromagnetism, a boundary that is as elegant as it is powerful. In the total darkness of the outer reaches, this dancing membrane of energy defines the limits of our world with a grace that defies its gargantuan scale. Low-energy cosmic rays are entirely excluded from our system, physically unable to pierce the solar magnetic field that defines this border. These particles, while still moving at incredible speeds, do not possess the sheer momentum required to punch through the magnetic lines of force at the Heliopause. They are gently but firmly turned away, forced to continue their journey through the interstellar medium without ever seeing the inner planets. This exclusion creates a specific clean zone within the heliosphere, where the most common types of galactic radiation are simply absent. It simplifies the radioactive landscape of our local space, leaving only the most exotic and energetic particles to navigate the interior. The Heliopause acts as a sophisticated gatekeeper, deciding with mathematical precision which guests are permitted to enter the Sun's domain. As your mind drifts into a quiet, uncluttered space, imagine this exclusion as a clearing of the way, a removal of unnecessary noise. The Heliopause ensures that the interior of our system is not cluttered with the low-energy debris of the wider galaxy. It creates a space of relative purity, a sanctuary where the environment is defined by our star rather than the chaotic background of the Milky Way. Only the absolute fastest and most violent particles manage to shatter this magnetic shield and penetrate into the inner solar system. These are the rare high-energy survivors of the filter, particles so powerful that even the combined magnetic tension of the Heliopause cannot turn them aside. They represent the elite vanguard of galactic radiation, the only visitors from the deep that are capable of making the full journey to our doorstep. Because only these extreme particles enter, the total number of cosmic rays reaching the planets is a tiny fraction of what exists in the open galaxy. The shield is not perfect, but its imperfection is a calculated one, allowing only a manageable trickle of the most energetic radiation to pass through its sieve. These rare intruders provide scientists with valuable data about the distant supernovas from which they were born, acting as microscopic messengers from the deep. This selective permeability ensures that while we are shielded, we are not entirely cut off from the story of the universe. The Heliopause allows just enough of the galaxy through to remind us of the vast energetic reality that lies beyond our borders. It is a window that is mostly shuttered for our protection, yet left slightly ajar to let in the most significant signals from the stars. During a period of solar maximum, the Sun's strengthened magnetic field pushes the Heliopause even further outward, actively increasing our protection. When our star is at its most active, it exhales a more vigorous and pressurized wind, inflating the heliosphere like a balloon receiving a fresh burst of air. This expansion moves the protective boundary further away from the planets, thickening the shield against the incoming galactic storm. Feel the warmth of this safety, the idea that our star actively strengthens its grip on the surrounding space when the environment becomes more challenging. It is a responsive system, a shield that breathes in sync with the star that created it. The Heliopause is an adaptive guardian, growing more resilient exactly when it is needed most to preserve the peace of the inner worlds. This breathing barrier ensures that the space we currently inhabit remains relatively calm and tranquil compared to the harsh, abrasive galactic environment outside. Inside the Heliopause, we live in a sheltered pocket of the universe where the conditions are mild and the radiation is filtered. It is the difference between being in a warm, quiet house and standing outside in the middle of a raging radioactive blizzard. The Heliopause creates the weather of our solar system, maintaining a steady and predictable environment that has remained largely unchanged for millions of years. This stability is the quiet foundation upon which all our science, our history, and our daily lives are built. We are the inhabitants of a calm harbour, protected by a massive invisible breakwater that turns back the heavy swells of the interstellar ocean. Ultimately, this deflector is what makes our section of the Milky Way feel like a home rather than a wilderness. It provides the boundary, the protection, and the calm that allow us to look up at the stars with wonder rather than fear. We rest safely in the heart of this breathing barrier, secure in the knowledge that the harshness of the galaxy is kept forever at bay. Though the harshness of the galaxy is kept forever at bay by our magnetic defences, a silent and physical accumulation begins to form just beyond that invisible line of the Heliopause. Here, in the absolute and chilling stillness of the outer void, neutral hydrogen atoms from the deep Milky Way start to pile up in a dense, invisible layer. These atoms, unlike the charged plasma of the solar wind, do not recognise the authority of magnetic fields, yet they find their forward progress hindered by the sheer presence of our solar bubble. They gather like snow drifting against a hidden fence, creating a massive reservoir of ancient gas that marks the beginning of the true interstellar ocean. This accumulation is the first physical sign of the galaxy's resistance, a ghostly gathering of matter that has wandered through the dark for eons. It serves as a dense, silent sentinel, a thickening of the void that announces the end of our sun's absolute reign. This layer acts as a physical buffer, a transition zone where the interstellar medium begins to press its case against our local sanctuary. This unique structure is widely known as the hydrogen wall, an immense architectural feature of the deep cosmos formed as interstellar gas slows down and compresses against our protective bubble. Imagine the solar system as a gargantuan windshield moving through a light rain. The droplets do not simply vanish but accumulate and press against the glass in a concentrated film. The neutral gas of the local galactic cloud, travelling at its own steady pace, finds itself suddenly bunched and packed tightly as it encounters the obstacle of the heliosphere. This compression creates a zone of heightened density, a physical thickening of the vacuum that acts as a buffer between the local and the universal. It is a slow-motion collision of materials where the ancient breath of the galaxy is forced to pause and wait. This wall is not a barrier we built, but a consequence of our very existence, a shadow cast by our shield onto the interstellar fog. The hydrogen wall serves as the primary interface between our star's influence and the raw, unrefined material of the Milky Way. It is a monument to the physics of motion, a place where the speed of the galaxy meets the stubbornness of our sun. Within this wall, the density of hydrogen is significantly higher than in the surrounding space, creating a palpable boundary in the dark. This structure defines the outer contours of our home, giving a physical shape to the void that surrounds us. Surprisingly, this massive accumulation of invisible gas does not remain entirely hidden from our specialized instruments, as it emits a distinct and haunting ultraviolet glow. This soft luminescence is born from the interactions between the sun's distant light and the compressed hydrogen atoms waiting at the edge. Even at such a staggering distance, The sun's most energetic rays manage to reach out and tickle these atoms, causing them to vibrate and release a faint ghostly radiance. It is a luminescence that defines the shape of the wall, turning a dark pile of gas into a shimmering landmark in the deep night. Without this specific light, the hydrogen wall would remain a purely theoretical construct, a ghost in our mathematical models. Instead, it shines as a soft ultraviolet halo, a crown of ancient light that encircles the entire solar domain. The glow is a silent testimony to the sun's enduring power, reaching out across billions of miles to illuminate the very wall that seeks to contain it. This light travels back through the solar system, carrying the signature of the galaxy's edge to our waiting telescopes. It is a faint, ethereal whisper of energy, a visual proof that we are surrounded by a magnificent and glowing architecture. This ultraviolet shimmer is the heartbeat of the frontier, a steady pulse of light that marks the transition from our world to the infinite. The distant New Horizons spacecraft, currently sailing through the cold and lonely depths of the outer solar system, recently succeeded in measuring this faint ultraviolet light. This intrepid robotic explorer, having long since passed the orbit of Pluto, turned its sensitive gaze toward the horizon to confirm the existence of this luminous boundary. Its instruments caught the subtle photons of the hydrogen wall, providing the first local evidence of the galaxy's physical pressure from within the system itself. This measurement was a milestone in our understanding, as it allowed us to see the wall not from the perspective of Earth, but from the very edge of the abyss. As you rest here, feel the profound stillness of your own body, a sharp contrast to the silent, high-speed journey of that lone probe through the dark. The spacecraft continues its lonely vigil, recording the faint signatures of the universe's edge while we remain safely anchored in the warmth of our own atmosphere. The data it sends back is a precious gift, a direct confirmation that the hydrogen wall is a physical reality and not just a trick of the light. New Horizons is our furthest eye, looking out into the dark to see the glowing boundaries of our home. Its success in capturing this light has given us a new map of the outer reaches, a clearer vision of where we stand in the grand design. This phenomenon is not unique to our own star, as similar hydrogen walls have been directly observed around other stars across the Milky Way, confirming that protective astrospheres are a common feature of the galaxy. When we look out at our stellar neighbours, we see the same ultraviolet signatures, the same piles of compressed gas marking the boundaries of their personal domains. It suggests that every star is a breathing entity, carving out its own sanctuary within the vast and indifferent interstellar medium. These distant walls act as mirrors to our own, proving that the physics of protection and boundary making are universal constants. We are not a lonely anomaly in the dark, but part of a grand recurring pattern of stellar influence. Every shining point in the night sky likely possesses its own glowing wall, a testament to the resilient nature of stars as they navigate the ancient, dusty currents of the cosmos. These astrospheres are the cells of the galaxy, each protected by its own glowing membrane of hydrogen. It is a comforting thought to realize that the universe is filled with these sheltered harbors, each one holding its own family of planets. Our hydrogen wall is simply our local version of a galactic standard, a universal design for cosmic safety. This realization ties our story to the stories of a billion other stars, all of us protected by the same shimmering walls of light. This glowing accumulation boundary is the very first piece of the true interstellar medium that any escaping spacecraft will encounter on its journey into the eternal night. Before a probe can truly say it has left the neighbourhood of the Sun, it must first pierce through this thick hydrogen-rich haze. It is the literal doorstep of the galaxy, the final layer of local material before the environment becomes purely and undeniably interstellar. This wall represents the true beginning of the interstellar journey, a place where the rules of the solar system are finally traded for the laws of the galaxy. It is a thick, glowing threshold that every traveller must cross to reach the stars beyond. Standing at this gate, we realise that the hydrogen wall is not just an end, but a magnificent beginning. Surprisingly, the universe reveals a paradox here. If we were to look closer at the individual atoms within this wall, we would find that they are neutral and entirely untethered by magnetic fields. This lack of electrical charge allows them to do what the solar plasma cannot. They seep slowly and quietly past the heliopause and into our solar system. Like a fine mist moving through a dense forest, these interstellar wanderers drift through our magnetic defences without resistance, becoming permanent guests in our local space. They represent a slow, silent invasion of the galaxy into our home, a gentle mixing of two different worlds that occurs without violence or heat. As you sink deeper into relaxation, notice how your own breath enters and leaves your body with the same effortless ease as these drifting atoms. They are the quietest travellers in the universe, slipping through the cracks of our gargantuan shields to remind us that no boundary is ever truly airtight. These atoms carry the chemical history of the galaxy into the heart of our solar system, enriching our environment with alien matter. They are the microscopic bridge between the stars, moving silently through the dark to link our world with the infinite. Their presence proves that we are always in contact with the galaxy, even within the strongest parts of our shield. By meticulously studying the specific light emanating from this wall, scientists can determine the exact chemical composition of the local galactic cloud with unprecedented accuracy. The ultraviolet glow acts as a spectral fingerprint, revealing the temperature, density, and elemental makeup of the material that surrounds our solar system. We no longer have to guess what lies in the voids between the stars, as the hydrogen wall brings the samples directly to our doorstep. It is a natural laboratory located at the very edge of our influence, a place where the secrets of the Milky Way are laid bare for our instruments to read. This data allows us to reconstruct the history of our local neighbourhood, understanding the types of gas and dust our sun has encountered over its long life. The wall is more than a barrier. It is an encyclopedia of the galaxy, written in the language of light and waiting for us to decode its ancient stories. By analysing the hydrogen and other trace elements found here, we can see the debris of ancient supernovas and the echoes of long-dead stars. It is a treasure trove of information, a physical archive of the galaxy's past that is stored right at the edge of our system. This knowledge allows us to better understand our place in the cosmic timeline, seeing ourselves as a part of a much larger and older story. The compressed wall of gas constantly emits a very specific and measurable wavelength of light, known to physicists as lyman-alpha radiation. This radiation is produced when the electrons within the hydrogen atoms drop from a higher energy state to their ground state, releasing a photon of precise ultraviolet energy. It is a fundamental signature of atomic hydrogen, a clear and unmistakable signal that cuts through the noise of the cosmos. Because this light is so specific, it allows astronomers to filter out the background glare of distant stars and focus purely on the structure of the wall itself. This lyman-alpha glow provides a map of the density and turbulence at the heliopause, showing us exactly where the interstellar medium is most compressed. It is the heartbeat of the boundary, a constant and rhythmic emission of light that proves the existence of the hydrogen wall, even in the deepest, most inaccessible reaches of the night. As you lie still, imagine this steady ultraviolet pulse echoing through the vacuum, a silent signal of the wall's presence. It is a lighthouse at the edge of the world, guiding our understanding of the frontier with its precise and unwavering light. This radiation is the primary tool we use to see the invisible, turning a dark pile of gas into a beacon of scientific discovery. Ultimately, this structure stands permanently as a shimmering, ghostly monument to the exact point where the sun's physical influence truly ends and the galaxy begins. It is the final landmark on our journey outward, a glowing marker that defines the limits of our star's dominion with poetic clarity. Long after the solar wind has been stopped and the magnetic fields have tangled, the hydrogen wall remains as a physical accumulation of the universe's ancient gas. It is a quiet and beautiful conclusion to the story of the solar breath, a place where the sun's warmth is finally traded for the cold, eternal majesty of the interstellar medium. As you allow your mind to drift toward the edges of sleep, imagine this soft, ultraviolet glow waiting at the horizon of our world. It is the final embrace of the sun, a monument of light and gas that watches over us from the very edge of the eternal dark. This wall is the physical boundary of our home, a shimmering reminder of where we end and the galaxy begins. It is a place of peace, a destination for the sun's long-travelled wind, and a starting point for our journey into the infinite. We rest securely, knowing that this ghostly monument stands guard at the edge of the night, forever defining our place in the stars. Our place in the stars was once a matter of theoretical distance, until a frail, golden machine quietly pierced the heavy veil into that eternal, untouched darkness. In August of 2012, the Voyager 1 probe achieved what was once considered a feat of science fiction by becoming the first human-made object to successfully cross the Heliopause. Launched during a different era of human history, this tiny sentinel had spent 35 years climbing out of the sun's gravitational well to reach this ultimate frontier. This historic crossing transformed the Heliopause from a mathematical abstraction into a physical milestone for our species. The spacecraft did not announce its arrival with a flare of light, but through a subtle, profound shift in the data, it whispered back to the antennas of Earth. It was the moment our reach finally exceeded our local grasp, pushing a piece of terrestrial metal into the vast ancient sea that lies between the suns. As you lie here, perfectly still and supported by the gentle pull of the world, consider the immense journey this small machine undertook. It sailed through the darkness of billions of miles to finally touch the very edge of the sun's breath. This tiny Voyager, with its aging sensors and limited power, became the ultimate pioneer, proving that the distance between stars is not a wall, but a journey that can be completed. The ancient spacecraft detected an abrupt and massive drop in solar particles, signalling its official departure from the sun's warm domain. For its entire operational life, the probe had been submerged in a constant outward-flowing tide of protons and electrons exhaled by our star. Suddenly, the sensors recorded a vanishing act of these familiar particles, as if the wind that had been blowing at its back for decades had simply ceased to exist. This vanishing act of solar matter provided the definitive proof that the probe had truly broken free from the heliosphere's protective embrace. The sun's physical reach had finally been outrun, leaving the spacecraft to drift in a region where the stellar breath could no longer reach. It was a transition that marked the end of an era, a clean break from the environment that nurtures all life in our system. Deep within its circuits, the machine registered a change in the very texture of the vacuum it inhabited. The familiar soup of solar plasma was replaced by a different, colder reality that had been waiting for eons. Voyager 1 had effectively crossed the final border, entering a realm where the sun is just one of many lights in the distance. Simultaneously, the onboard sensors recorded a massive and sudden surge in galactic cosmic rays flooding the sensitive instruments. These high-energy particles, which had been mostly deflected by the Heliopause for billions of years, were now striking the probe with unmitigated intensity. It was as if a shield had been lowered, allowing the raw, unfiltered fury of the deep galaxy to finally wash over the golden hull. This surge confirmed that the Heliopause is not just a boundary of gas, but a vital filter that keeps the most dangerous parts of the universe at bay. Away from the sun's protection, the probe was now exposed to the same conditions that exist in the vast gaps between the stars. It became a witness to the true, unshielded environment of the Milky Way, recording the heavy bombardment of particles from ancient supernovas. The surge in radiation was the final unmistakable signal that the spacecraft had entered the interstellar medium. It had transitioned from a sheltered harbour into the open, radioactive sea of the galaxy. This data provided scientists with a terrifyingly clear picture of just how much work our solar bubble does to keep us safe. Surprisingly, the universe revealed that this historical transition was not an instantaneous jump, but occurred over a confusing period of complex magnetic shifts and reversals. For months, the probe seemed to dance along the edge, crossing into regions of interstellar space only to find itself briefly submerged in solar material once again. The magnetic fields twisted and buckled, creating a messy, braided frontier rather than a sharp, razor-thin line. Notice how the rhythm of your own heart remains steady while the universe at its edges behaves with such beautiful, chaotic unpredictability. The probe navigated this magnetic labyrinth with stoic persistence, recording each reversal and every shift in the plasma's flow. It revealed a boundary that breathes and ripples, reacting to the push and pull of the two cosmic giants it separates. These magnetic signatures were unlike anything scientists had ever simulated in their laboratories on Earth. They painted a picture of a frontier that is as intricate as the surface of a turbulent ocean. Voyager 1's journey through this transition was a masterclass in patience, as it slowly disentangled the Sun's influence from the galaxy's grip. 6 years after the first crossing, the Voyager 2 probe reached the boundary at a completely different location, providing a second vital data point for our understanding of the frontier. While its twin had exited through the northern hemisphere of the solar bubble, Voyager 2 took a path that led it toward the southern reaches. This second crossing allowed astronomers to compare the two sides of our shield, checking for symmetry in the vast architecture of the heliosphere. Having two probes in the interstellar medium transformed our single point of data into a true three-dimensional map of our place in the void. It proved that the experience of Voyager 1 was not a localized anomaly, but a fundamental property of our system's edge. The data streamed back across billions of miles, confirmed by two separate instruments in two vastly different sectors of the night. Voyager 2's arrival in interstellar space reinforced the idea that we are a system with a defined physical limit. It showed that no matter which direction we travel, we will eventually encounter the weight of the galaxy. This second crossing solidified our grasp on the true scale and shape of the sanctuary that preserves us, giving us the confidence to name the void. If we were to look closer at the comparison between the two crossings, we would find that Voyager 2 revealed a much sharper and physically thinner boundary layer than its twin had previously encountered. The transition for the second probe happened with startling speed, as if it had punched through a tight pressurized membrane rather than a thick sprawling marshland. This difference suggested that the Heliopause is not a uniform shell, but possesses its own weather and varying topography. The Sun's activity cycle had shifted in the years between the two crossings, likely causing the boundary to contract and tighten. This revealed a frontier that is highly sensitive to the moods of the star that created it, hardening and softening like a physical skin. Voyager 2's experience provided the first evidence of how the Heliopause breathes over the course of a solar decade. As you feel your own breath slowing and deepening, imagine this colossal shell expanding and contracting across billions of miles of space. The thinner boundary encountered by the second probe was a reminder of the universe's fluid nature. It showed us that the gate to the stars can be a narrow passage or a wide, echoing corridor depending on the sun's rhythmic pulse. Both automated sentinels remarkably found that the magnetic field outside the Heliopause was strangely aligned with the field inside. This was a profound and unexpected paradox, as most models predicted that the galactic magnetic field would be tilted at a sharp angle to the Sun's own field lines. Instead, the fields appeared to merge and match up with eerie precision, as if the two environments were perfectly synchronized. This alignment suggests a level of magnetic connectivity between the Sun and the galaxy that we're only just beginning to understand. It implies that our star is not just a visitor in the Milky Way, but a deeply integrated part of its magnetic tapestry. The fields seem to weave together at the Heliopause, creating a seamless transition that defies our traditional expectations of a hard border. If we were to look closer at the magnetic texture, we find that these fields seem to weave together across the transition. This discovery has forced physicists to reconsider how energy and particles are exchanged at the very edge of our world. The alignment of these fields might act as a highway, allowing certain types of energy to flow more easily between the solar system and the interstellar cloud. These twin probes are now sailing freely through the pristine interstellar medium, completely untouched by the solar wind for the first time in their long lives. They have reached a state of ultimate liberation, moving through a space where the sun's physical pressure has no more authority than the light of a distant candle. This is the true deep, a region of the galaxy that has remained unchanged for millions of years, far removed from the churn and noise of our planetary system. In this pristine environment, the plasma is colder, denser, and filled with the ancient whispers of other suns. The spacecraft are no longer travellers in a solar backyard. They are true citizens of the Milky Way, navigating the vast gulfs between the stellar fires. They move with a quiet, frictionless grace through a medium that has never before been touched by human technology. Surprisingly, the vacuum here feels heavy to the probe's instruments as the density of particles increases away from the sun's thinning influence. They are experiencing the true weight of the galaxy, a reality that was once hidden from us by the protective bubble of the heliosphere. This freedom is the ultimate reward for their half-century of continuous, unyielding flight. They are currently gathering the first direct and unblemished samples of spatial material untouched by our local star's chemical influence. For decades, everything we knew about the interstellar medium was gathered through distant telescopes and filtered light, but now we have machines physically submerged in the medium itself. They are measuring the precise ratio of isotopes and the density of dust that has drifted through the galaxy since the beginning of the solar system. This information allows us to look back in time, seeing the chemical fingerprint of the region of space we have been travelling through for eons. We're finally learning the true recipe of the local galactic cloud, unclouded by the sun's personal atmosphere. The samples show a world that is rich in the ashes of old stars and the raw gas of the future. The samples gathered in this dark silence reveal the true chemistry of our neighbourhood. It is a chemical archive of the Milky Way, held in the freezing dark just beyond our reach. The probes act as our hands, reaching out to touch the ancient material that will one day form new worlds and new suns. Their fading plutonium power supplies will soon silence them, but their physical journey through the boundary and into the deep will continue forever. The tiny pellets of radioactive decay that have kept their computers humming since the 1970s are slowly cooling, reaching a point where the machines will no longer be able to speak to the Earth. Eventually they will become silent, golden monuments, drifting through the interstellar ocean as inert, frozen messengers of a distant civilization. Even in their silence, they will remain the furthest outposts of the human spirit, carrying our curiosity into the eternal night. They are destined to wander the galaxy for millions of years, perhaps outlasting the very star that birthed them. Their physical presence at the edge of the dark is a permanent signature of our existence, a quiet testament etched into the fabric of the Milky Way. As you drift toward the edge of your own awareness, imagine these two machines continuing their lonely, majestic glide through the stars. They have crossed the final threshold and found the peace of the infinite. Their story is now the story of the galaxy, a silent and eternal journey through the pristine darkness that waits beyond the sun. Beyond the pristine darkness that waits beyond the sun, the story of the galaxy continues through a wispy, almost imperceptible fog of ancient stellar ashes. This vast expanse of diffuse material, known to scientists as the local interstellar cloud, fills the endless space immediately outside the Heliopause and serves as our system's current celestial neighbourhood. It is a ghostly, sprawling medium that blankets the region between the nearest stars, providing the physical context for our sun's long-distance flight. This cloud is a realm of extreme subtleness, where matter is stretched so thin that it exists more as a mathematical probability than a tangible substance. While it appears as a void to our biological senses, it is actually a complex tapestry of ions and atoms drifting silently through the cosmic deep. It represents the immediate frontier, the very first layer of the true interstellar medium that our star must part as it navigates the grand currents of the Milky Way. The local interstellar cloud is the invisible sea in which our solar bubble is currently submerged, a localized thickening of the vacuum that defines our spatial reality. It acts as a bridge between the local influence of our star and the gargantuan, ancient structures of the broader galaxy. Within this wispy fog, the history of our solar system is being written against a backdrop of ancient stellar remnants. Astronomers affectionately refer to this specific, highly localized region of space by the surprisingly gentle name of the local fluff. This moniker evokes an image of softness and lightness that perfectly mirrors the cloud's incredibly low density and its delicate, ethereal presence. It is a term of endearment for a structure that, despite its massive scale, possesses a physical weight that is almost non-existent compared to the atmospheres of planets. This fluffy architecture is composed of a near-perfect vacuum, yet it holds enough substance to exert a measurable influence on the boundaries of our solar home. It is a reminder that in the grand theatre of the cosmos, even the most fragile and wispy structures can shape the destiny of stars. The name itself suggests a quiet, unassuming nature, a cosmic mist that clings to our system as we drift through the dark. Deep within the scientific community, this name serves as a shorthand for the specific environment that has nurtured our system for millennia. It is the immediate neighbourhood, the fluff that we must navigate to reach the next clear clearing in the woods of the Milky Way. This term captures the essence of a medium that is both immense and nearly transparent, a phantom presence that anchors our place in the local stars. This drifting cloud spans roughly 30 light-years across, a distance so staggering that it would take light itself 3 decades to traverse its breadth. Surprisingly, the universe has imbued this sparse region with a temperature that reaches thousands of degrees, making it exceptionally hot in a thermal sense. Yet, because the particles are so few and far between, this heat possesses no ability to warm a physical object, existing only as a measure of high-speed atomic motion. The density of this fluff is so low that it contains fewer than 10 atoms for every few cubic inches of space, a level of emptiness that exceeds any vacuum possible in a terrestrial laboratory. It is a paradox of physics, a blazing, expansive furnace that would feel like an absolute frozen void to any traveller passing through it. This sparse architecture ensures that the cloud remains nearly invisible, revealed only through the most sensitive ultraviolet and telescopic observations. If we were to look closer, we would see that this vast 30 light-year expanse is a delicate balance of energy and nothingness. It is a massive, warm bubble of gas that resides within a much larger, colder void, providing a unique environment for our sun's current passage. The scale of the fluff is a testament to the immense, slow-moving structures that define the geography of the interstellar medium. Our entire solar system has been travelling steadily through this specific patch of fluff for roughly 100,000 years. This residency began long before the first cities were built on Earth, spanning the entire history of modern humanity and the evolution of our species. We are long-term tenants of this wispy neighbourhood, moving at a relentless pace of 50,000 miles per hour toward its far and distant edge. For every moment of recorded human history, the stars we have seen and the light we have studied have been filtered through the subtle haze of this local cloud. Our star has been a silent guest in this region, pushing its way through the ancient stellar ashes with a persistent rhythmic momentum. We have spent an eternity, in human terms, submerged in this specific pocket of galactic history. As you rest here, feeling the natural weight of your body supported by the Earth, allow yourself to acknowledge the staggering timeline of this journey. While your breath is steady and the world around you is still, you are currently part of a system that has been ploughing through this same interstellar fog for 1,000 centuries. We are ancient travellers in a neighbourhood that has remained largely unchanged for all of human memory. Current trajectories and measurements suggest that we are expected to completely exit this cloud and enter a new, unknown interstellar region within the next 10 to 20 millennia. In the grand, multi-billion-year timeline of our star, this transition is happening in the blink of an eye, marking the end of our residency in the local fluff. We are approaching the ragged, thinning edges of this 30 light-year structure, preparing to plunge into a different kind of darkness. The region that waits beyond is a mystery, a void that may be even emptier or perhaps more turbulent than the one we currently inhabit. This impending exit represents a major environmental shift for our entire solar system, a move into a new galactic district with its own unique pressures and densities. We are the generation that has just begun to realise we are near the door of our current home. This upcoming transition will mark a new epoch in the history of the Sun, as it leaves behind the familiar gas of the fluff for the uncharted currents of the deep Milky Way. It is a reminder that nothing in the universe is permanent, not even the vast clouds that shelter our solar system. We're moving toward a new frontier, a departure from the wispy fog that has defined our spatial climate for so long. If we were to look closer at the mechanics of our future, we would find that the physical properties of the heliopause will drastically alter once we finally leave the local fluff behind. The size, shape, and strength of our protective bubble are not fixed, but are dictated by the material currently pressing against it from the outside. Once the specific pressure of the fluff is removed, the heliopause will be forced to renegotiate its borders with whatever new medium lies ahead. This sensitivity highlights the intimate connection between our Sun and the specific pocket of space it occupies at any given moment. We are not an island, but a dynamic system that changes its skin as it moves from one interstellar region to another. The heliopause is a living, breathing interface that will look and behave differently once we cross the threshold into the unknown void. Surprisingly, the universe allows for a subtle mixing of these worlds, as tiny dust grains from the fluff occasionally penetrate the heliopause and drift deep into our solar system. These microscopic travellers are often neutral and solid, allowing them to ignore the magnetic barriers that successfully turn back the solar wind and the interstellar plasma. They slip through the gates of our fortress like ghostly invaders, carrying the physical essence of the galaxy into the space between our planets. These grains move at high speeds, surviving the long journey from the edges of the heliosphere to reach the orbits of the inner worlds. They are the only solid pieces of the galaxy that we can touch and analyse without leaving our own neighbourhood. Their presence proves that no boundary in space is ever truly airtight, and that the outside is constantly seeping into our inside. Notice the absolute stillness of your own environment, a sharp contrast to the silent, high-speed bombardment of these ancient galactic messengers currently passing through our system. While you're grounded and safe, the very space between the planets is being seeded with the dust of the local fluff. It is a gentle, continuous rain of alien matter that has been falling on our solar system for as long as we have been in this cloud. These tiny, drifting particles hold the ancient chemical signatures of long-dead stars from across the distant and forgotten reaches of the Milky Way. They are the pulverized remains of stellar furnaces that burned out and exploded eons before our own sun was even a whisper of gas in a nebula. By capturing and analysing these grains, we are able to read the history of the galaxy as it is written in the solid soot of the void. They carry heavy elements like iron, silicon, and carbon that were forged in the hearts of supernovas, serving as tiny time capsules of cosmic evolution. Each grain is a witness to a violent and majestic past, a piece of a story that spans millions of light years and billions of years. They connect our local space to the grand recycling process of the universe, where old stars die to provide the building blocks for new worlds. Understanding these particles is like studying the ash from a distant campfire to learn about the wood that burned. They tell us about the specific stars that lived and died in our part of the galaxy before we arrived on the scene. The local fluff is an archive of stellar history, and its dust is the ink that records the biography of the Milky Way. The exact density of the fluff directly dictates the overall size and structural strength of our entire heliosphere at any given moment in time. Like a balloon submerged in the ocean, the solar bubble is squeezed by the external weight of the cloud it currently inhabits, finding its equilibrium where the pressures match. A slight increase in the fluff's density can shift our borders inward by millions of miles, compressing our sanctuary and moving the front lines of our defense. This means that our system's living space is a direct reflection of the neighborhood we're passing through. If we were to encounter a particularly thick patch of the fluff, our protective bubble would shrink, bringing the harsh galactic environment closer to our planetary home. The strength of the sun's breath is only half the equation. The other half is the stubbornness of the fog that surrounds it. Deep within our scientific inquiries, we realize that understanding this surrounding cloud is absolutely crucial for predicting the long-term spatial climate of the region surrounding Earth. The amount of radiation that filters through the heliopause and reaches our world is inextricably tied to how the fluff interacts with the sun's magnetic field. Our future security and the stability of our atmosphere depend on mapping the wispy geography that currently shelters our star. Changes in the fluff can lead to spikes in cosmic ray intensity, potentially affecting the climate and the biological history of the planets over millions of years. By studying this local mist, we are looking at the gears and levers that control the long-term safety of our cosmic harbour. It is the ultimate weather report, one that spans millennia and dictates the conditions of life on a planetary scale. Ultimately, the local fluff is the context for our existence, a wispy guardian and a quiet neighbour that has accompanied us for our entire history. We are the inhabitants of a specific cloud, a small family of planets moving together through a fog of ancient stars. Understanding this cloud is the key to knowing where we have been, where we are, and what waits for us in the vast, uncharted territory ahead. Exploring that vast, uncharted territory ahead requires us to embrace a fundamental cosmic paradox. The heliopause is simultaneously a definitive end and a new beginning. As we approach the outer skin of our star's influence, we are not simply arriving at a cold, dead wall, but at a vibrant gateway into the broader expanse of the Milky Way. It is the termination of a local, solar-driven story and the opening paragraph of a grander galactic narrative that spans the entire universe. Inside this boundary, the sun is the undisputed master of the environment, dictating the flow of plasma and the strength of magnetic forces. Once we cross this threshold, however, we enter a realm where the local laws are traded for the ancient and heavy dictates of the deep interstellar ocean. This duality creates a sense of profound stillness, a moment where the very idea of an edge dissolves into a seamless and eternal transition. We are leaving home, yet we're also arriving at the true scale of our cosmic neighbourhood for the very first time. It is a place where the familiar fades and the infinite begins, held in a delicate and perfect state of suspension. This paradox ensures that our departure is never a loss, but a transition into a much larger understanding of our place among the stars. Despite being heavily studied as a definitive edge, this boundary is not a fixed geographic location that can be pinned with certainty on a map of the heavens. It is a dynamic, ever-shifting concept that dances in the dark, expanding and contracting with the sun's internal pressures and the galaxy's weight. If we were to look closer, we would see a frontier that is more like a shifting shoreline than a solid brick wall. The position of this interface can migrate by billions of miles over a few short years, responding to the rhythmic heartbeat of the solar cycle. When the star is fierce, the boundary is pushed outward. When the star sleeps, the interstellar medium presses inward to reclaim its territory. This constant movement turns the heliopause into a living, breathing participant in the life of our solar system. We inhabit a bubble with soft, moving walls that are never in the same place twice. This fluidity is the key to our protection, allowing the shield to absorb the shocks and tides of the surrounding cosmic environment. It is a masterpiece of flexible engineering, a boundary that adapts to the universe rather than fighting against it. Within this shifting shoreline, we encounter a staggering physical contradiction. Particles hovering at this boundary are nearly frozen in physical space, yet they possess impossibly intense thermal energy. because the solar wind has been brought to a complete standstill. Its former kinetic speed has been converted entirely into raw, microscopic heat. The result is a region of space that is mathematically boiling while remaining almost perfectly still. The protons and electrons here do not race forward. They vibrate with a localized fury that defies their lack of travel. This creates a sensory focus of disorienting, profound stillness, where motion loses its traditional meaning and time feels entirely suspended. If a traveller were to sit in this zone, they would be surrounded by particles moving with the energy of 1,000 fires, yet nothing would seem to happen. As you sink into the quiet comfort of your own rest, notice how the stillness of your body provides a similar anchor against the hidden energy of your own internal life. The heliopause is the ultimate expression of this balance, a place where the most violent energy is contained within a state of absolute frozen calm. It is the quietest inferno in the universe, burning with a heat that has nowhere else to go. While the sun's magnetic influence abruptly stops at this threshold, its invisible gravitational pull extends light years further into the distant and icy Oort cloud. The heliopause marks the end of the star's atmospheric reach, but its heavy, silent grip on the debris of the system persists far into the dark. We are magnetically separated from the galaxy, but gravitationally tethered to our home for a much greater distance. This separation of forces creates a strange, layered geography where the boundaries of home depend entirely on which force you are measuring. A comet drifting 10 light-years away is still a child of the sun, yet it resides in a region where the solar wind has long since been forgotten. The heliopause is the edge of the sun's breath, but the Oort cloud is the edge of its mind. If we were to look closer, we would see that gravity is the true enduring anchor of our existence, crossing boundaries that even the most powerful magnetic fields cannot pierce. The heliopause is a barrier for light and plasma, but it is entirely transparent to the silent pull of mass. It proves that the reach of a star is far more complex than a single line in the sand. This structure perfectly defines the limits of our sheltered home, yet it is constructed entirely of violent, high-speed collisions with the alien galaxy. The very shield that grants us our peace is forged in the fire of a continuous invisible war between solar protons and galactic ions. Our sanctuary is not a fortress of stone, but a permanent explosion of energy held in a state of delicate suspension. Every atom of protection we enjoy is the result of a microscopic impact that occurred billions of miles from our world. It is a staggering realization that the tranquility of our local space is bought and paid for by this distant, unending turbulence. The heliopause is a wall made of combat, a boundary that thrives on the very conflict it seeks to resolve. As you sink into the warmth of your surroundings, realize that your tranquility is mirrored by this distant, protective struggle. We are the beneficiaries of a cosmic stalemate, a perfect balance of power that keeps the violence of the universe at a safe and respectful distance. The heliopause is our silent champion, standing at the edge of the night to turn the galaxy's fury into a shimmering wall of peace. Surprisingly, the universe maintains this structure through a process of perpetual destruction and immediate, effortless renewal. Every passing second, the heliopause is actively eroded and shattered by incoming galactic radiation, only to be instantly rebuilt by the relentless outward push of the solar wind. It is a living scar on the face of the void, a structure that exists only because of the unceasing struggle between two opposing tides. It is never the same boundary twice. It is a new creation in every moment, a fresh manifestation of the sun's unyielding will. This constant cycle of rebirth ensures that the shield remains strong and resilient, never growing brittle or old with the passage of time. The heliopause is the ultimate survivor, a structure that finds its strength in its ability to be destroyed and born again in the same breath. This eternal renewal is a testament to the sun's enduring power, a star that refuses to allow its influence to be snuffed out by the encroaching dark. We live inside a miracle of physics that is being meticulously maintained for us with every heartbeat. It is a boundary of pure process, a monument to the idea that the only constant in the universe is change. To look closely at this boundary is to look back in time, as any physical changes occurring on the Sun take years to ripple outward to this distant frontier. If the Sun were to flicker or change its intensity today, the heliopause would not feel the effect for a decade or more. We're observing the delayed reactions of a star that has already moved on, watching the ghosts of solar activity play out on a canvas billions of miles wide. The boundary is a physical archive of the Sun's past, a record of every flare and every quiet period that occurred years before. This time delay turns the heliopause into a cosmic mirror of history, reflecting the story of our star's life back to us from the edge of the abyss. We are shielded by the echoes of our past, protected by a wind that has travelled for a lifetime to reach its destination. This separation in time adds a layer of profound mystery to the frontier, as we realise the edge is always living in our yesterday. It is a place where the present moment is an accumulation of years of steady, patient travel through the vacuum. The heliopause is the Sun's long-term memory, held in a state of glowing ultraviolet suspension at the edge of the night. The sheer, terrifying scale of this frontier renders the traditional human concepts of speed and distance almost entirely meaningless. At these edges, 1,000,000 miles is a mere heartbeat, and a decade is a fleeting moment in the life of the shield. We are forced to abandon our terrestrial measurements in favour of a cosmic perspective that values the slow, grinding shifts of the interstellar ocean. Motion loses its meaning when you are billions of miles from the nearest landmark, and time becomes a suspended liquid reality. The heliopause is a place where the human mind must expand to match the architecture of the stars, leaving behind the smallness of planetary thinking. It is the ultimate training ground for the spirit, a threshold that demands we see ourselves as citizens of the infinite. Notice the quiet rhythm of your own presence, a small and steady anchor in a universe that operates on a scale beyond comprehension. The heliopause is the final boundary of the small and the first boundary of the great. It is the place where our maps end and the true unmeasured journey of the soul begins. It is the ultimate quiet zone of the solar system, a place where the lack of an atmosphere ensures a profound and eternal silence. Yet, despite this lack of air, the region constantly hums with complex plasma waves that specialized instruments can translate into haunting, eerie audio. These vibrations are the songs of the boundary, a low-frequency chorus generated by the friction of the stars rubbing against the galaxy. The hum is a steady, rhythmic vibration that pulses through the electrified gas, a soundless music that defines the texture of the frontier. It is the voice of the struggle, the audible signature of the Sun and the galaxy locked in their permanent magnetic embrace. To listen to these waves is to hear the heartbeat of our home, a sound that has been playing since the birth of the system. Scientists find in these recordings the precise data they need to map the density and turbulence of the deep void. It is a beautiful irony that the quietest place in our world is filled with such a rich and meaningful sound. The heliopause is a silent choir singing a song of protection and belonging to any machine that has the ears to hear it. Ultimately, the heliopause physically proves that absolute isolation in space is a grand and beautiful illusion, as we are intimately connected to the galaxy. While we once viewed our system as a lonely island, we now see that we are magnetically and chemically entwined with the broader Milky Way through this interface. We are a part of a much larger turning machine, linked to the dust of old supernovas and the gas of future suns through this living membrane. Everything we are and everything we know is a collaborative work between our star and the surrounding universe. The boundary is not a wall of separation, but the very place where the connection is most profound and physical. We are the inhabitants of a star that is actively breathing with the galaxy, a system that is part of a grander universal conversation. This connection is the final piece of the journey, the realization that we have never been alone in the dark. The heliopause is the umbilical cord that ties our fate to the stars, ensuring that we are always home, no matter how far we travel. We rest securely, knowing that the boundary is not the end of our world, but the beginning of our belonging. The Heliopause is the final shimmering proof that our existence is a collaborative work between the breath of a single star and the eternal tides of the galaxy, proving that we are never truly alone in the dark. The Heliopause stands as the final, shimmering proof that our existence is a collaborative work between the breath of a single star and the eternal tides of the galaxy, proving that we are never truly alone in the dark. This vast protective membrane reminds us that the boundaries of our home are woven into the very fabric of the cosmos. If we were to look closer, we would see that every breath we take is supported by a shield that spans the infinite. Deep within this awareness of the cosmic shield, bring your attention down to the very tips of your toes. Notice how they feel heavy and warm, as if they are anchored to the quiet center of the earth. The muscles in your feet are beginning to soften, releasing the day's journey into the soft, supporting mattress beneath you. Surprisingly, the body knows exactly how to let go when the mind acknowledges the safety of our interstellar harbour. As you breathe out, feel the relaxation move upward through your ankles and into your calves. Your legs are becoming like weights of lead, sinking deeper into the stillness of the room. If we were to look closer at the sensation of rest, we would see the tension draining from your knees and thighs. This heavy, comforting blanket of peace continues its slow ascent, washing over your hips and lower back. Your spine is lengthening and settling, perfectly aligned with the steady, silent rhythm of the night. This quiet room is a sanctuary where the vastness of the outer reaches meets the intimacy of your own breath. Feel your abdomen and chest soften with every exhale, mirroring the gentle expansion and contraction of the solar bubble far above. Your heart beats with a calm, certain pulse, a small clock ticking in the middle of a peaceful wilderness. The focus shifts entirely to the hands now. Each finger is uncurling, losing its grip on the world and surrendering to the absolute silence of the bedsheets. Your palms are warm and still, resting precisely where they need to be for a night of deep, undisturbed slumber. A wave of softness moves through your wrists and into your shoulders, allowing them to drop away from your neck. The weight of your head is cradled by the pillow, which feels cool and inviting against your skin. Every muscle in your jaw is relaxing, leaving your face smooth and expressionless in the dim light. Notice the way the air feels as it moves in and out of your lungs, a simple and perfect cycle that requires no effort at all. The room is a cocoon of darkness, filled with the soft scent of clean linens and the low hum of the night. You're drifting in a sea of comfort, where the only reality is the gentle rise and fall of your chest. Sleep is a deep well of recovery, waiting to welcome you into its dark and healing waters. The pillow supports you, the blankets protect you, and the silence of the room is a gift. Everything is quiet, everything is safe, and everything is exactly as it should be. And now, 101 wonders are resting with you. Sleep now. Good night.